Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with the first of a new series of videos I'm going to be doing. I've obviously been reviewing TV shows on my channel. I've done Korra, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've done like top 10 TV shows and stuff like that. But I haven't really reviewed just a live action thing. And so this video is going to be the first Sherlock review that I'm going to be doing. Now, Season 3 is starting in 5 days on the 1st of January 2014. I'm going to be reviewing that episode by episode, so you'll see three videos from me on those 3 episodes. But there has already been a Season 1 and 2, I've seen them, and like I did with Transformers Prime, since I only got into this late, I'm not going to go into each episode kind of one by one. So this video is going to be my review of the first 6 episodes of Sherlock as a whole. I'm not so much going to focus on the episodes individually, as I am kind of the series as a whole and kind of like things that the series has done so far that I hope maybe Season 3 expands upon and stuff like that. So this video is going to be my review of Sherlock Season 1 and Sherlock Season 2. I suppose first of all I should mention how I got into it. I suppose I wouldn't say I was a Sherlock fan before this. I think I'd read one of the books, the first one, A Study in Scarlet, and then I've seen the Robert Downey Jr. movies. But I wouldn't say I was really a Sherlock fan so much. But Kelly from the Avatar Online podcast that I do, co-host, she got into it thanks to Tumblr, I think. And then from there I got into it because she was talking about it on the podcast, and I really kind of fell in love with the show, so that's kind of where it began for me. But yeah, let me get into this. I really like the show. I've talked in the past about how I'm not really that big of a fan of live action shows, just because I feel that oftentimes animation does things better. Like Core Avatar is one of my favorites because it kind of almost is more realistic than other things. And with Sherlock, I like that they kind of didn't do the thing that some shows do, where they kind of make it just almost unbelievable that this could actually happen, even though it has a more realistic setting than most animated things. So I like that they kept that level of realism to it, and that was really good. That I kept a nice level of humor in the show, and very much kind of brought you along on the ride as kind of Sherlock and John figure things out. So it was just really loved how the show presented itself, and oddly it was just the kind of gimmicky thing about the show, the idea of Sherlock's thoughts and how he kind of comes to the conclusion about things, them showing like text on screen captions about how he figures things out. That was what really just like made me go, okay, I like this show, because as you probably know, I'm kind of an analytical person myself, and I can definitely kind of understand that that level of thinking and stuff like that. So that really kind of brought me in and made me kind of go like, oh, so they're really going down the road of making this guy have this kind of super level intellect, and I like that they showed that on screen, and it was just an interesting way of showing that he's a smart guy, but he's different than just any other smart guy. He can really think through things in a different way, and I like that. But let me get into my basic thoughts on the kind of format of the show as a whole. Obviously, each season is 3 episodes, which means after 2 seasons we've had 6 episodes. And I think both seasons so far have followed a format, that being the first episode of each season is more of a character-focused thing, introducing you to some of the main things that the season is going to cover as a whole. It's not a crazy continuity driven show where the events of the first episode have a huge impact on like what happens in the next few, but there are some character things and mainly like overall villain things that continue kind of through the episodes. But the first episode is character focused and has a case to it, but it's a lot more kind of personal. The second episode kind of takes you away from the kind of main areas of the show. So the blind banker is more of this kind of focus on kind of like Asian stuff. They're around different parts of the city. They introduce a kind of whole new kind of group of characters that kind of only are there for this one episode. and then you have the Hands of Baskerville in season 2 as the second episode. And that again, you go to this new place in the countryside, and again, you're introduced to the people that live in this town and that kind of military facility, and they're all new characters for this episode. And it's got a very different feel to the other 4 episodes of the season. And then finally, the last episode of each season really has that kind of finale drama to it. There's a lot of energy, intensity to the episodes. So you have the Great Game, which is just like small case after small case, adding on top of them. It's like a race he has to do in a time, or people will die. Lots of intensity in that episode. And then you have the Reichenbach Fall, which is just this kind of, I suppose it takes away some of the intensity and puts it more into drama, emotion, but it's still a really super intense episode with what happens at the end. Sherlock having to commit suicide to save people, and just the whole kind of emotion of the fact that Moriarty's kind of like ruined his reputation and he's forced him into this situation. There's a lot to the episode, but that's the basic format to the 2 seasons. In that each one starts off with a character one focused episode, kind of takes a break in the second episode and kind of does something off somewhere else. There you get the episode that's probably the least connected to the overall arc of the show, and then you get the kind of really story drama driven stuff in the last episode. And from the sound of things, season 3 is not going to kind of directly follow this. It seems like, yes, the first episode is probably going to be character driven in that you have a lot to do with reuniting John and Sherlock and introducing some new characters. And then I'm not really sure, I haven't been keeping up too much about what the second and third episode of the season's about, but we'll see as we go along through the season next year. Well, it's only a week away now, but yes. So I'll just briefly go through my rankings of the episode, because I think that's probably the best way to go through the episodes without spending like 10 minutes talking about each of them individually. I think my bottom 2 episodes are the 2 middle episodes of the season, as I said, just because, as I said, they are kind of the most disconnected compared to the other 4 episodes. So number 6 of the 6 episodes out so far is The Blind Banker. Just because I think it's got the weakest group of kind of new characters out of the whole show, and in many ways the biggest weakness of the whole show is that it kind of, for it being 90-minute episodes, it kind of struggles a bit to introduce new characters. The 2 times where it really succeeded were Irene Adler in the first episode of season 2, and then Jefferson Hope in the first episode of season 1. With all these new characters that we get in the second episode, they had some humor, a little bit of romance in, but on the whole, the fact that none of them basically continue into episodes after that is a kind of big downside to me. In that you have John's girlfriend in that episode, the blind banker Sarah, who just kind of disappears after you kind of are presented with her for a good portion of the episode, and then she's just gone. Same with the 2 kind of other kind of minor characters in the episode who kind of have this romance thing, and it's kind of forgotten about towards the end of the episode when she's killed off, and then the other minor characters just kind of fade into the background. It's got some interesting stuff, as ever. I'm not going to say any of the episodes of Sherlock are bad as such. This one just, I think it gets away from what makes the show really good, and introducing a lot of new characters kind of takes away from the kind of strength of the other characters, in that you have other characters there that don't get as much screen time, like Lestrade, Anderson, Sally, and all these other characters who you kind of wish had time instead of these ones that were going to go away. But it's still a fun episode. It's got some nice kind of Chinese kind of culture stuff about the numbers, and as ever, the cases are interesting in the episodes. Number 5 is The Hands of Baskerville. I think this is one of the most famous books of Sherlock Holmes. I've still to read it. Probably is one I will do eventually. But it's definitely probably the most unique episode of the show, in that it's, even more than The Blind Banker, it just goes to a completely new place. We don't really see much of London at all. and you get this kind of horror themed episode where it's really focused about the psychology of fear and stuff like that. You see Sherlock and John kind of both go through this kind of thing of fear. I think it's the most kind of Scooby Doo esque episode of Sherlock in that it has the kind of crazy explanation at the end, and each episode of Sherlock has that explanation, but this is the one where like it all comes together at the end. The villain and the heroes are in the same place, and something happens from there, leading to them being captured, and it works. It works that they don't do that every episode, and like the strength of this episode was those kind of like the bits at the end. Like I really got into the story with the whole gas kind of coming up through the thing, and that's what caused it, and all that sort of stuff. It just stuff like the security in that military base, as much as Sherlock had the Mycroft's like ID code or something like that, it was hard to believe that they kind of broke in there like 2 or 3 times over the course of the episode, and only really got discovered once. It was just kind of that kind of thing where the show was just winking at you like, this needs to happen, so kind of ignore most of this. And for a show that I think is realistic enough, it kind of just like went a bit too far down that road. But still an interesting episode that they kind of took the risk with that one. But with only like 6 episodes, for the show to take that big of a risk was interesting. And then with the top 4 episodes, again it comes back to the groupings that I did at the start. Like, do I put the character focused episodes or the kind of drama story focused episodes ahead of each other? And I think the conclusion that I came to was that I kind of had to mix them up. Like I couldn't just go, okay, character focused episodes are 3 and 4, drama episodes are 2 and 1. I kind of had to split them up. So unfortunately it kind of ended up with like the first episode, Study in Pink, coming in number 4th place. And I think this is where the kind of just most of my negatives stop with the series, and that I don't have many problems with the remaining 4 episodes I need to talk about. A Study in Pink I love because it's like a perfect introduction episode. When a show does like its first episode that well, you kind of go, this show's a success. The Legend of Korra had an amazing opening episode, so does this one, so does Sherlock, and that really succeeded. The episode focuses mainly on the introduction of John and Sherlock and how that kind of helps both of them in a way. John oddly ends up being the main character, which is something I wasn't expecting, but it was also something that drew me into the show after seeing Sherlock be dominating the kind of Robert Downey Jr. movies. Seeing John kind of being presented first as the kind of main character who needs Sherlock was an interesting dynamic, and then I think it has a really strong kind of case, kind of plot to it, with the whole simplicity of it being a cab driver, and that the whole Sherlock thing of he thinks almost too much about things, and so he missed the obvious answer of who's like ignored in plain sight. A cab driver. There's so many of them around you. You never suspect that they do something like this. And he ended up being a really interesting character in that you had the super dramatic, intense confrontation at the end. It wasn't physical, it was all mental. They're just sitting next to each other, the 2 bottles, and a lot of stuff going on, while John is kind of trying to figure out, everyone's telling him, don't kind of go with Sherlock, you'll end up badly. But the fact that it's ultimately like John likes the kind of drama that kind of being around Sherlock kind of puts him through, and it saves him in the end. It's a really good episode. Third, I'm going to have to go for... I'm just trying to think. What shall I put in 3rd place? I haven't really planned this out that much, so that's why I'm kind of thinking as we go along. I think it's going to have to be the Reichenbach Fall. And I feel bad putting it in 3rd place because it is such a good episode. Possibly it's overrated just because of how crazy the mystery that spun off from what happened at the end, kind of what that presented did to the fandom and stuff like that. Because I think it is a really good episode in what it does. Maybe it's just that there's not enough like good moments. It's a bit of a kind of like oh no, down moment that I can't say that's my favourite episode. And maybe if it did have more of a happy moment somewhere in it, it could have been further up. But what it does really well is that it's, apart from the great game, which obviously presents the Sherlock and Moriarty meeting for like the first time, you really see those two kind of sparring here. You get some really great moments in like the opening kind of musical montage of him breaking into everywhere. Then you get the other montage of finding out what happened with the in the court case, and then Sherlock gradually kind of becoming like defamed by Moriarty. Maybe doesn't quite have the like intensity drama that some of the other episodes have. And it's really hard to pick between the top three episodes. My top two, A Scandal in Belgravia or The Great Game. I think I'm going to put two as The Great Game. And I like this episode a lot just because it has a lot of mysteries to it. I like that even after the first two episodes, we had a kind of light case with the whole Jeff Hope cab driver thing, and then the blind banker thing wasn't the most interesting episode. So for the third episode of season 1 to just have solve all of these mysteries at the same time, all of which have like one overarching mystery to them, really interesting, and it just really presents Sherlock in this like really interesting light. He's the hero, and he's doing all this stuff, and also kind of dealing with some of the stuff about like his humanity, trying to figure these out. He treats it like a competition and kind of to some extent ignores the fact that there's people's lives at risk, and kind of hits him hard a little bit at the end, and how John reacts to all of this, and the different personalities between the two over the course of the thing. Most action orientated episode as well, so that was good. And just overall, really, really solid episode. First place, I think I have to go with The Scandal in Belgravia. It's the only one left, but I'm still kind of undecided between my top three, so this one is just like spur of the moment, thinking about it. I think this is probably my favourite episode of the show, just because lots of really, really good character moments in this, and I think Irene Adler is definitely the strongest kind of one episode character the show has, and just in terms of she was brought in for this episode and what she does to Sherlock as a character, and playing this role of kind of like not quite the villain, not quite the hero, just this kind of in between character on her own, and what she like the trouble she causes and all this. A lot of stuff going on in this episode, a lot of funny moments as well, and you get the kind of fight between John and Sherlock, hit me, the whole priest thing, and lots of funny stuff. And I think just the whole mystery, what's the code to her phone, is like Sherlocked, and it's perfect, and it's like, how did they not come up with this? And just the whole thing of they play on the fact that like Sherlock has no experience with women, is like really awkward around him and stuff like that, and then ultimately it's like he actually knows the science of like love so well in the end, that he kind of plays her at the end, and that's how he ultimately wins, after kind of almost being bested by her for the start of the episode. I just really like that kind of one-on-one dynamic between the two, where it's not a friendship, it's not a romance, it's not, you don't really know really what to call it, just kind of weird rivals in a way, and it's just really well done. Almost kind of more so than the whole Moriarty Sherlock thing, but just right now I think that's probably my favourite episode. As I said though, I really off the top of my head I'm finding it difficult to like pick between the top three episodes that I kind of had on this list, but I think right now that's it. So I'll put a recap at the end where I'll like show you the list at the in full written on the screen, just so you know for sure what I put down. But yeah, that's mainly it. That's more or less what I wanted to cover in this video. I think it's a really, really good show. I love the whole idea that each episode is 90 minutes long. It means you get a really in-depth story. What I hope season 3 does maybe better is that when they introduce new characters, they actually like keep them there for a while and give them time on screen, because as much as I thought Irene Adler was like the best one-shot character, I kind of hope she comes back at some point in one of the episodes, just so it's not just this one-shot thing, because I think there's so much more they could do. Same with a lot of these other characters in the first and second season. I felt they could have done more with. So in season 3, I hope to do that. And definitely, I hope they make the second episode a lot more interesting and don't have it just be the kind of experimental episode of the season. But yeah, just other than that, they need to, I think, really show that Sherlock has either that he's changed a lot over the kind of 2 years that he's been gone, or maybe that do something with the fact that he doesn't think anything will change when he comes back, and have to like develop from there or something like that. It's just gonna be interesting. And then of course, John having to deal with the fact that his friend's been dead for 2 years, coming back, do some interesting stuff with him as well. But I'm really eager to see these new episodes when they come out. I think but all 3 of them are going to air over the course of like 12 days or something like that. So interesting. But yeah, just a schedule, I suppose. Next few days, I'm going to try and get out my review for the kind of mini webisode, to the kind of preview thing for season 3, Many Happy Returns. I'll do a brief review on that because I think it's really interesting. And then as each episode airs, episode 1, 2, and 3, I'll do an individual review on that. Going to probably try and make them somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. Maybe I'll go on longer than that, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm going to end this video by saying this. As I said at the start, Kelly from the podcast, Avatar Online Podcast, got me into Sherlock. She's also reviewing Sherlock on her channel. She's doing it a bit differently to me. She's actually going back and reviewing each episode individually of season 1 and 2. And then she's going to be reviewing season 3 when it comes out as well. So check out her channel. Link is in the description. Her username is the Sherlock Avatar. And I think she, as of now, has the first 2 reviews out, and I think she said she's posting the 3rd one in the next day or 2. But yeah, check out that, and obviously keep an eye on my channel for my Many Happy Returns video, and then season 3 in about 5 days or so, or whenever I get a chance to do that. But yeah, thanks for watching this video, and bye.